Hey Broken Tea Society, I'm Jon Tattersall. I'm here at Full Swing's headquarters in Carlsbad, California. Here to talk to you about some specific things you can try and do with your golf swing, particularly to help you with your driver swing. Some of the techniques I use with some of the players, some of the data I've used from looking at how they interact with the ground, force plates, and the force they apply to the grip. So some things that you can really do to help get some speed up, ramp up some speed in your driver swing. Okay, so the driver, it's the longest club in your bag. It's got the least amount of loft, so it is the most punishing, but it can also be helpful because we've got it on a tee, so hopefully balances out a little bit. You're trying to swing this thing as fast as possible, ideally. We're interacting with the ground and we're interacting with the grip. That's it. We have no other way to apply any force to this club. So how our feet work is really important, and how we use the grip to move the club around us is really, really important. So think about it simply. Think about a Jon Rahm, the way he swings, incredibly strong, quite a short backswing. Think about, say, a Ludwig Aberg, how he swings, much more rhythmical, longer backswing. So we have two opportunities, if you will, to provide more speed. We can have a longer backswing, so essentially we're getting a bit more time, or we can be like Jon Rahm and be incredibly strong, Aberg strong as well, but Rahm has got to be stronger because he's applying more force in the same amount of time. Their ball speeds are very, very comparable. Rahm obviously, hopefully, he's only got this much time to put force into that grip. Aberg's up here. So try and figure out who you are. The thought that you can just swing smoothly and apply more speed is not an option. We know the best players provide more force than the average player. It's tricky watching it on TV because it looks so rhythmical. They're so good at what they do. You kind of belittles what they're actually doing. When you get up close and personal with a really good player, you can physically feel the energy that's being produced. And so part of it is we have to feel like we're working harder. If you think you can just swing smoothly and it's going to go further, it's not going to happen. So there's a practice speed, if you will, and then there's an operating speed. The idea years ago, when I grew up, it was like, okay, you're swinging at 80%. The mindset is it's like a second serve in tennis. That is not what these players are doing now. They are like, it's ripping it. First serve in tennis. Hit it as hard as you can. Same with the golf swing. So we have to put force into the club. What does that mean? From the time you take the club back over history, back to impact, it's about a second, whether it's you or whether it's Jon Rahm or Aberg. We don't get more time, and they don't have more time than us. They've got a second. We also know from looking at them, they have about 2/3 of a second in the backswing and 1/3 of a second in the downswing. So if the time is the same for them and us, and the ratio when you're swinging well is the same for them and us, the only difference is they're putting more energy into the swing than we are. So when does that begin? You'll see a lot more golfers now, when they're setting up. There was always kind of the waggle. You're seeing a lot more golfers now that will probably push the ground moving side to side. So that's, you probably heard of ground reaction forces. What does that mean? The thing that really helped me understand this more was the word impulse. So impulse in this world means how much energy am I putting into this swing during the whole swing? Okay, so I used to think we take a backswing and then we have a downswing. And the backswing is just kind of teeing it up, just kind of getting it going. But the energy I put in the backswing remains in the system. And that's really helpful to understand. It doesn't just evaporate. So if I'm swinging back with more aggression, I have to work harder on the grip to get it going. I then have to work harder as I approach the top of the swing to slow down and get the right transition. But that energy is still in the swing. Okay, so now I get to keep that energy all the way through the golf ball. So if you're watching a tour player on TV, it looks pretty smooth. As I said, when you get up close to them, you can see speed going back and through. One of the things they've always said is, tour players will say they feel pretty smooth in transition. And you're at home trying to be smooth in transition. The problem is that usually relates to you being slower in the backswing. You're trying to be too cautious in the backswing. And so you're a bit cautious in the backswing. Your brain's going, okay, I've got to hit this pretty hard. And now you're trying to add a lot more speed in the downswing. You hit a bad shot as a result. You over-accelerate the grip, and the club doesn't work very well when you do that. So now you hit a bad shot. And your buddies say, you got too quick on that one. What happens is nobody in that situation would then go faster going back. You tend to then slow down even more. So you're almost making the whole situation worse. So clearly, or not clearly, I hope you try this on the range first of all, but find an operating speed you can operate at. If you're going back too slow, don't try and over-accelerate on the way down. The club is trying to swing in harmony with you, and you have a rhythm to your body when you're swinging. When it feels good, generally those two rhythms are matching up very, very well. If you're going back very slow and then you try and accelerate the club too much, the club feels very springy in transition. You rarely get that speed to the golf ball. So think more in terms of, again, that word I love was impulse. When I understood that, very, very helpful. Think more in terms of how do you create momentum to hit it further, not just acceleration. And most of the time I find with recreational players, when I say let's hit it harder, you're thinking acceleration. It's speed over time, force over time. Great way to think about it. If I was a tour player standing here and I'm trying to talk to you, they're probably standing moving like this the whole time. Something's moving. They're trying to feel where the club is and where they are. They know where it is because they do it so much. Have the same sensation. Get the sense of you know where the club is, where you are, and you're trying to really pump the ground as much as you can. Grip it really firmly because you're about to move this thing from 0 to 100 or over 100 in less than a second. So really feel like you're putting some energy into the system. Give yourself a pep talk, pump yourself up, get after it. So we talk a lot about ground reaction forces, pressure shifts, all that kind of stuff. So I want to get some do's and don'ts with that. The one thing you should realize is that I cannot see force, you cannot see force. This information comes from force plates. But as I tell you these things, hopefully if you look at players or you've seen great drivers, it will become obvious to you and you'll see when you film your own swing how it looks good, how it looks off. What's been really helpful to me to understand is when does the weight move or when does pressure move and how much does it move? So if I'm setting up to driver, so driver is more the extreme if you will, but the same traits are in every swing. The best players I've seen, they have a specific pattern to how they move. So they move, you may not see it quite this exaggerated, but they're pushing left to go right, which may look like a sway to a lot of people. But it's, if you look at most players, it's an early shift, an early sway. So it's quite aggressive from this leg to the trail leg. We know from force plates, by the time the club gets to about here, the player has more than 100% of their weight into the ground, or more than they pressure into the ground, more than they weigh. It's that early. That was one of the things that really surprised me about looking at this data, how early these things happen. So it's very much of a left foot push, I'm right-handed remember, lead leg push into the trail leg. As I push over here, my brain is now going, wait a minute, I don't want to fall over. So now it's going to push, and now this leg is really working hard to push me up. So it's kind of making me work left leg, right leg. Momentum is taking me up in the backswing. Before the top of the backswing, the trail leg is now pushing this direction. So we don't go to the top. I grew up looking at pictures of players, so it looked like the top of the backswing was all here. But as the player's getting close to the top, they're already shifting back across. Force precedes motion. So we know before they get to the top, even though this leg doesn't look like it's moving, we can see the force into the ground is going kind of that direction, down my leg, which pushes my hips back across. So it's way earlier than I thought. They're getting heavy on the right leg. As the arms and the upper body goes up, they get lighter. It's called unweighting. They're up, and then they're across. With a driver, which kind of freaks people out, by the time the arm is about here in the downswing, the lead arm, they are pushing maximum with the lead leg up to pull the grip up. So play around with what you're doing on the timing. And ideally, when you do that, you'll do this if you do it well, but ideally think about the base of your neck isn't moving much. It may move a touch to begin with, but we need a pretty fixed point up here to make you work around. So the legs are pushing incredibly hard this way. There's way more linear motion in a good golf swing than there is rotary. The drivers of the golf ball have more side-side push than they do rotation. And it's not obvious because we see rotation in the golf swing, so most recreational players are trying to create rotation, but we know the best drivers of the golf ball have linear movement around a steady head. So Jack Nicklaus, his coach Jack Grout, used to grab his hair and make his move his ankles. I don't know how they figured that out all those years ago, but that's an awesome way to think about it. Just maybe not grab the hair though. So if you feel brave enough, video your own golf swing, or if you like to look at great players' video, or take a look at what they're doing. One of the checkpoints I use is the head moving much, so I don't want that action. But I do want to see where the zipper goes or where the belt buckle goes. So you'll generally see with the great drivers, their belt buckle or their zipper moves their right leg fairly early in the backswing. And as I was saying, before transition, or before the club transitions, the zipper's moving back across. And so they're pushing back across, so now the zipper looks like it's down the left leg as it approaches impact. So if you're struggling with driving, look at this relationship between the top of or the base of your neck and the belt buckle. Does it look more like this, or does it look more like this? We don't want this one. We really want this steady, into the trail leg, into the lead leg. Okay, so some of the things I see from, obviously I know drive is important, so I'm constantly trying to help people drive it better. Some of the things I think, or I see happen with players is, we know turning is important. So a lot of times they will turn and they're overturning and their body's over here. The heads move too far. The shoulders get way too flat over here. They may be restricted in how they can move. So rather than thinking like the backswing is a shift with an up, with some turn, they go straight to turn. And now we get this kind of action in the backswing where you're almost back over here way too soon. So that's one of the things I see. One of the other things I see is when I tell people, okay, it's okay to sway early in the backswing. That's a good thing. I'm swaying early and now my right foot is working hard. People will say, hey, I didn't think a sway was any good. Well, the sway you see that's no good is a late sway. It just continues. There's no stopping. So what I try and do, and it's a bit kind of being sarcastic because I'm English, I try and get people to sway earlier, quicker. So now they're going, oh gosh, I've got to stop sliding that way. And now it becomes up and rotary. So if you look like this at the top of the backswing, don't try to stay absolutely still. We've got no energy in that. Try and push the threshold. Can you push across and then stabilize? So the sway that's a bad one is a late sway. A sway early, it's what the best players do. The other thing we see in transition for good players is that they've shifted back across earlier than their upper body goes. And if you see a player, or you are the player that rotates too much, your head moves, and when you try and get back, it's an upper body movement, that's the one we don't want. And what tends to happen with that is now you're a pull slicer. The thing that people will do there, you're using video, you're looking down the line, and now you're trying to fix the club, you're trying to get it shallower. The body's committed too far over here and too rotary. This could look okay on video, doesn't work. It's a high pop-up. So make sure you get the feeling the lower body moves side to side, the head stays pretty steady, and we do need linear before we get rotation. So rotation is going to steepen it, linear is going to shallow it. So a sway is okay early, shift back early, steady head. We're not trying to shift weight from up here, we're shifting weight from below, and we're not trying to put rotation in early in the downswing. If you move well side to side, you never really have to think about rotation. You're just thinking, I get on my right leg, on my lead leg. One of the fascinating things I found when I started looking at force plate data, so again, we can't see force, it's invisible, was how much are the best players actually pushing the ground. And so, say a tour player weighs 170, they're generally pushing the ground in the downswing when they're maximizing their ground push 2 times their body weight. So at 170, that player is pushing the ground 340 pounds. The crazy freaks, the long drive folks, they're pushing the ground 3 times their body weight. And why I think that's important is from a recreational player looking at a golfer, which looks perfectly balanced, perfectly synchronized, it looks so easy, they're not working that hard. Well, guess what? If you're pushing the ground twice as much as you weigh, you're working incredibly hard, and it doesn't carry over to what you're trying to do with your game. One of the drills I found is very, very helpful, kind of sets things up and gets your mind going a little bit. Again, do these drills not expecting perfect ball flight. It's nice to get that, but these drills are much more like ramping things up, trying to get things going. And you've probably seen it quite a bit, is where you'll see these players step as they go back. So they're pushing the lead leg, they're moving to the right leg, and the left leg literally moves across. So it's very early in the backswing, it's moving across. As soon as they feel maximum weight on the trail leg, they're starting to plant and push back across to the lead leg. Patrick Harrington, I think, is a phenomenal follow on social media. He's done all these things in tournaments. Okay, so imagine when you say, hey, I can't do that, I got to kind of stay in my lane. He's doing it for a living, and he's done it in tournaments where he's literally standing here, stepping across, stepping back across, and then he ends up almost facing this way. He's pushed so hard. So if he can do it in a tournament for his living, this is how he makes his money, you can try it too. But if you're trying to be calm, cautious, I want it to go in the fairway, you're not going to do these things. So the step drill is an awesome way to pull all this information together and actually practice it. Do it on the practice range first of all, though, if you would, because what I don't want you to do is go to the first tee, try it for the first time, say it doesn't work, and you abandon it. I know it works, you've got to get better at it.